The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and Assalamu Alaikum. It is 23rd of September, and you're listening to the Urban Kube Show, brought to you on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. We are going out to the lovely people, Luton surrounding areas this morning, plus Peterborough's Salam Radio and Sheffield's Link FM. I hope you are well, winning, and dry this morning. We've had some crazy weather, and it's going to be an interesting week. All I can say is please stay dry and stay safe wherever you are. The roads have been were blocked yesterday with a lot of flooding. The drains were blocked, but we plod along, and it's interesting. Every show I have, I'm always talking about the weather in one way or another. The nature is so unpredictable, but it's so dynamic. And on today's show, interestingly, we're going to be talking about how to get more into nature and what's actually stopping us. Maybe we need more waterproofs, right? Or maybe a better umbrella. Who knows? I'm going to be having that conversation on the show this morning with a very, very interesting guest. As always, the show is always brilliant in the sense, if I say so myself, with the caliber of guests I have. And the Urban Kube Show, for those of you who are not familiar with the show and if you're first time listening in, is a show that celebrates Muslim arts and lifestyle, where I get the opportunity to speak to dynamic creatives from the Muslim world, who are trailblazers and who are doing phenomenal things, in the hope that I can share their story, their creative journey with yourselves to inspire, to motivate you, and to engage you with whatever they're getting up to. Now, on today's show, I am joined by a fabulous guest, and this guest, we'll find out very shortly where they are speaking from. They're not live in the studio, unfortunately, but you can catch them on a Facebook page for Inspire FM. So if you go onto the Inspire FM Facebook, you will inshallah get to see them. If not, then you are very welcome to kind of listen in and leave any comments regarding the conversation today. You're also very welcome to leave any comments on our WhatsApp number, which is 07779 481822. Now, just to tell you a little bit about who our fantastic guest is, her name is Nina Nadia. She is a 35-year-old investigations data scientist at Ravelin, which is a fraud tech company. She's originally from Mombasa, Kenya, and Nina moved to London 21 years ago and studied biological sciences at Cambridge University before transitioning to tech. In addition to her role at Ravelin, she serves as the Director of Outreach at Black in Data, organising data skills workshops and hackathons. Nina is passionate about mountaineering and volunteers with Muslim hikers and is training to become a mountain leader. She thrives on challenges, especially as she's having completed notable events like the London Marathon and summited both Mount Kilimanjaro and Everest Base Camp. Nina is dedicated to empowering others, particularly Muslim women, and aims to leave a positive legacy by uplifting her community and breaking barriers in underrepresented fields. What a dynamic individual Nina is, and it's an absolute treat to have her on today's show. I'm delighted to be joined by Nina Nadia on today's edition of the Urban Kube. Once again, she is an investigations data scientist and a trainee mountain leader. And today we're going to be talking to her about the importance of getting back to nature and what stops us from doing so. Maybe more waterproofs, as I said earlier. It's an absolute treat to be speaking to somebody as dynamic as Nina on the show, who's not trailblazing and breaking barriers in the world of tech, but also mountaineering as well. An absolute treat to have her this morning. And let's see if we can delve into tech and catch the conversation with her this morning. Let's see if everything's working. Assalamu alaikum, Nina.
Wa alaikum salam. Can you hear me on your end?
Oh, I can. Loud and clear. Wow. I am so happy that our tech is working today, especially as you're the absolute pro.
Oh, I don't know. My solution would be, have you tried switching it off and on?
Oh gosh. As simple as that, right?
As I get. Yeah.
So we'll make dua, switch it on and off, and let's see if it works. Well, Bismillah, that's what I'm going to say. Bismillah. It's all working. And a massive big warm assalamu alaikum to you, Nina. Thank you so very much for joining me on Inspire FM.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute treat, my dear. Firstly, I'm sure our guests will love to know, are you dry?
Yes, I am. I am nice and dry indoors.
Fantastic. And are you on a mountain?
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that.
On a mountain, by any chance?
Not today. Not today. I was on the weekend. We went for a hike with Muslim hikers down to Surrey Hills, which was nice and dry mostly. A little bit of showers, but we were under the canopy, so nice and covered.
Brilliant. Now, you're not shy of torrential weather, are you? You can't be if you do this.
No, I had to learn the hard way. So my first ever hike was for, I think it was during the Islamic Week at university, and we wanted to go for a charity hike to raise money. And I went very underprepared. So I had like joggers, just casual trainers, and a hoodie. And we got there, and within 5 minutes of getting onto the trail, it just like the skies opened and the rain started just literally showering. We had hailstones, 50-mile-per-hour winds, and everyone was down on their fours. We didn't get far, but I think that was the first experience of like, wow, you really are up against the elements. And like, subhanAllah, for me, it was like one of the opportunities where I started to appreciate that, yeah, there is a lot beyond just what we have in the city. So like you get to experience Allah, I think, in a very, very different way when you're on the mountain. And weirdly enough, that was where I caught the bug. After that, I was like, oh my God, I love this. I want to try it again.
I love the fact that you caught the bug in torrential rain. The hailstone. Lady, you like a challenge, don't you? And nothing has stopped you since. I love it. I love the fact that, you know, you've not looked back, but you've taken a lot of people with you on this journey of mountaineering. Mashallah. Wow, Nina. Firstly, I want to say, I mean, did you think you were like cool in your joggers and your trainers, and you thought, yeah, we can do this in these clothes? And what have you learned since about clothing and mountaineering?
Oh God, I honestly felt so unprepared because my friend and I signed up like a week before the actual hike. So we just thought, oh, we'll wear what we wear to the gym. That's fine. Rocked up and then realized just how underprepared we were, and how important the clothes you wear affect the experience you have in the outdoors. And I think there's like a saying that it's not bad weather, it's just bad gear. In the sense that you really, like, the more prepared you are and the more you invest in like the gear you have, it really affects the experience you have. So as I went through my journey, I started like working on building just getting the gear that I need. So like really good waterproof jacket, really good waterproof trousers, a good solid pair of waterproof boots, and then layers inside to sort of like combat the cold. And you probably have heard of Bilal. He is someone who really got me into hiking and kind of like helped guide me through that journey. So he's been very good at recommending where not to go and where to like keep an eye out for.
Fantastic. That's not the Bilali, the mountain goat.
Oh, yes, that is the mountain goat, Mr. B.
Mr. B, bless, mashallah. And he is a real inspiration. And the number of people he's got outdoors hiking has been absolutely inspiring, as are you, my dear, because mashallah, your journey has been extraordinary. And on today's show, we are talking about getting back to nature, the importance of nature, and what stops us from doing so. And thank you for sharing one element that you've just mentioned. It's about gear, and the clothes that we wear does make a difference on our performance and ability to
Absolutely.
hike. On this note, I'm going to just mention to our listeners this morning, folks, I am joined by the absolutely fantastic Nina Nadia, who's joining me in cover, dry, this morning, talking to us about her extraordinary experience as a trainee mountain hike leader, but also her journey as an investigations data scientist. So it's the best of both worlds. Not only are we going to be talking the world of tech, but also the world of nature and mountains. If you have any questions, folks, feel free to contact us on Where Else on 0779 481 822. Also, folks, do catch the conversation on the Facebook Live page for Inspire FM. Leave any comments that you have on there, and inshallah we'll read them out, or we'll respond to them after the show. Nina is with us all the way up to 11 o'clock. We're not letting her go on any mountains. She's only staying on the show this morning. We'll be finding out from her experiences, and mashallah, I'm just in absolute awe, really. When I was reflecting on your experience, Nina, which I spoke about earlier on in the show, I was absolutely blown away. And the question I have is really that, how did you transition from biological science to data science? How did that happen? How did you navigate this world?
Ooh. I would say the way I did it is probably not advisable. I started out as a pre-medical student at Cambridge University. And in my first year, I sort of started to realize that I wasn't as invested as all my other peers. It felt like medics do nothing but sleep, eat, talk, medicine. And then when they're not doing medicine, it's just like conversation revolves around medicine. Whereas I couldn't wait to get out and like go and speak to other students, like learn about business, learn about humanities subjects, and kind of go to all the societies I could. And it wasn't until the second year, I think, when I got back home for the holidays, and my mom just asked me the question like, have you considered like another subject? And I think she just did it as a passing comment because she saw like how unhappy I was. But it kind of triggered the thought that perhaps I should have a think about other areas. Because prior to that, I hadn't really been exposed to a lot of like business opportunities or like roles in other industries. And in my third year, I sort of went to my director of studies, and in between crying, I was just like, that's it. I want to give this up. I don't want to do medicine anymore. And alhamdulillah, for me, I have to say I was quite fortunate that my sister is 2 years ahead of me, and she was also in medicine. So I could kind of see the trajectory and what was coming up ahead. And it honestly did not inspire me. I kind of felt like everything was set in stone. There wasn't really much to discover or to kind of like contribute towards, which is not true, but that was definitely the feeling for me. And once I made that decision, it was then a case of figuring out like, oh no, what do I do now? I've just gone off a path where your next 10 years are pretty much outlined, to having to then figure out like what exactly you're going to do. And alhamdulillah, for me, it was a good exercise of like sitting down and thinking about, okay, so what am I good at? What am I not so great at? What do I naturally gravitate towards? And then finding roles that kind of aligned with those areas. And while I was doing that, I also had fallen in love with like coding. So I started attending meetup groups, kind of being exposed to people in the data industry, but also like in the software development world. And yeah, it sort of the two merged together. So the first role I got was as an executive analyst, and I got exposed to data from there. And I thought, data analysis might be a good way to go because it still uses some of the things I'd learned at uni. And it wasn't until my second role that I suddenly cemented, like, okay, I definitely want to go for data science, because it felt like a good merge between having a good business understanding, but also applying the technical, like statistical skills that I'd learned at uni, as well as like coding being a big element of your day.
Wow.
And alhamdulillah, I kind of worked towards that and managed to get my current role, which is working as an investigations data scientist.
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about what that means, because that sounds super techy.
Correct.
But the question I have for you is, I mean, navigating the world of tech, not only as a woman, but a black, visibly Muslim woman, how does that, like, you know, how does that work? How was your experience? Did you face any barriers?
I think I have to say I was very, very fortunate. The time when I was trying to get into the industry, there were a lot of outreach activities to try and encourage more women and more minorities to enter the field. So you had meetup groups dedicated specifically to women. And the idea would be to try and like pair you with another woman in the field. So you get a chance to actually work with them and ask them questions. And generally, like, you get asked them like questions that you wouldn't really ask in a conference, for example, or, you know, in a big environment, just getting to understand their experience of working in the tech field. And what I gathered around that time was that generally the tech world is very good at inclusivity. And also they're very good at trying to create a work-life balance. So you have like a nurturing environment, which is something that I craved. I had tried working in like civil service, and for me, it honestly felt like it was a bit soul destroying. And it was more that you had to take the working world very like corporate. You had to take a corporate approach, whereas I really liked the organic style in a lot of tech industry companies that I'd kind of been exposed to. So for me, I think getting into it, there weren't really many challenges. It wasn't really until like the COVID times when the incident with George Floyd happened, where suddenly you sort of like, as a minority, you're just exposed with all the varying opinions and reactions, and you're kind of having to face the fact that, yes, you are a minority in the workplace, and there will be certain situations that you'll have to either decide when you stand up for yourself and your community, and when you actually take a step back and say, that's not my fight. This is not where I choose to put my energy. So there have been a few incidents, but I would say they're independent of the industry itself. It's just more the working world.
I love this fire in the belly that you have, and it seems that you are somebody that is not shy of any challenge, in particular anything that you put your mind to. For folk that are listening in who are not familiar with what a data scientist does, could you explain to me what that is? What does your actual role entail?
Of course. So for me specifically, I work as an investigations data scientist, and I would liken it to being Sherlock Holmes online. We're essentially looking through a stream of data to try and uncover patterns. And the industry I'm in is specifically around fraud. So we want to try and identify fraudulent behaviors that we should be preventing in order to protect customers and companies. So, for example, if someone was to steal a set of cards and try and use it to place orders, we want to look at all the signals that allow us to differentiate that from a genuine customer so we can prevent them. And then equally, if someone tries to hack into your account and then they place an order, we want to prevent that from happening so customers are not at a loss, and also companies are not having to pay for the fines that come as a result. And for me specifically, I sit in the middle of that flow where I need to uncover the patterns, understand what measures we need to put in place, and then work with the modeling machine learning engineers to build those features into our predictive system so that it can then work in real time.
Wow. Now, you then are a very, very special person then, aren't you? Because you're protecting thousands and hundreds and thousands of or millions of people from data fraud. And with our technocratic world that we live in, everything is so digital, everything is online. It's actually, we're overwhelmed with how much of our world is online and how much our identity needs to be protected. How does your mind not spin with all this power that you have?
It is very, I would say there are moments where you kind of go on a power trip and you're just like, ooh, look at all this data. Oh my God, I could do so much. But in reality, when I look at it, it's just rows of numbers and like figures. I always think of it like I've been given a set of Legos and I'm kind of playing with it. And in the end, I end up building something that could be useful for someone. Okay. But in reality, I'm just playing. I'm literally just like looking at a piece of Legos. I'm like, ooh, this is cool. Ooh, that color goes with this one. Let me try this. Let me try that. So in a way, I think I'm almost detached from the outcome. I'm just more focused on like, okay, what can I do with the actual pieces that I have here? And then pray that whatever I end up building is beneficial and it serves the purpose that it's meant to. So in that way, I think I almost like separate myself from the moral questions of how much data we're collecting. Should we be collecting this much information? Should we really know so much about someone? Because like, if I can see a history of your purchases, I could genuinely tell a lot about you as an individual.
And I think this is what is quite overwhelming and quite scary for a lot of people, because they want to protect their personal information, and yet everything that we're attaching ourselves to online is gathering a trail of us and capturing it, which I find quite overwhelming. But this is the way the world is. It's become quite normal. But say 30, 40 years ago, people would have been quite shocked and horrified maybe by it. Yeah. I have this, you are an investigations data scientist, but you just spoke here so candidly. It's like colours and building Lego, which is, I'm like, Nina, I was thinking you were quite serious in your job, but not anymore. She sits there making patterns, people. But the question I have to ask you is, do you have a favourite number?
Do I have a favourite number?
Yeah.
7 jumped to mind.
7. So when you see 7, you get happy.
A little bit.
We're having such
it's the first number that came to my head.
I love it. She's quick on the mark, this one. She's definitely quick on the mark. Folks, if you're listening into the show this morning, it's an absolute treat. We are joined by no other than Nina Nadia. She is definitely dynamic, and with a capital D, and maybe a 7 thrown in there as well, because she is really a trailblazer in the field that she's in, not only in the world of tech, but also in the world of mountaineering. And on today's show, we are talking to Nina Nadia about her role as an investigations data scientist, trainee mountain leader, but also the importance today we're talking about getting back to nature and what stops us from doing so. Now, you're such a contrast really to many people, because here's a woman who's in front of a computer doing data investigations, and yet you're also out doing investigations on the mountains. It's a really interesting balance. What do people say to you, or how do people react to you when they find out about your professions and then you're out in nature?
So far, honestly, people have just been, I guess, understanding. And for me, just to go back to the connection between the two, because I spend most of my time in front of a computer during the week, I honestly look forward to being on a mountain. It's almost like sometimes I will book in hikes in order to have something to work towards. So it's no longer a case of like, okay, we have this big project that we have to deliver and it's like really stressful and everyone's like hands on deck. It's more like, okay, we have several hours before I can be on a mountain and I can kind of put this working world behind me and I can just go switch off completely. And with hikes, you generally have a good 6 to 10 hours where you aren't really checking your phone, you're not connected, you're kind of just in the moment and experiencing like nature's beauty. So for me, it's like really important. And I recognized it more so during COVID when we weren't able to go out. And it kind of felt like even that 1 hour walk that we were given became really precious. And I would try and find ways to just like make the most of it. So when we did start to open up and like be able to go outdoors, it turned into a bit of an obsession. So it was like, okay, now I want to explore all of the UK. I want to see as much as I can.
Fantastic.
And then when you speak to Bilal and he tells you about all these exciting expeditions, you're just like, yeah, sign me up. We'll figure out how to make it happen. Let's just do it.
Yeah, it's easy as that. Easy as that. And we are going to be talking about these wonderful mountains that you've been climbing and the marathons that you've been running, and so much more after our break. We are heading to a break, folks. I'm still going to be joined by the absolutely extraordinary Nina Nadia straight after the break. She is with me all the way to 11 o'clock. If you've got any questions, do throw them over about mountains, about data, even about Lego. It's all good. It's all happening on the show. Join me straight after the break. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and assalamu alaikum. It is 10:30, exactly, 23rd of September, and you're listening to the second half of the Urban Kube Show, brought to you on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. We are going out to the lovely people, Luton surrounding areas this morning, plus Peterborough's Salam Radio and Sheffield's Link FM. I hope you are well, winning, and dry this morning. We've had some crazy weather, and it's going to be an interesting week. All I can say is please stay dry and stay safe wherever you are. Mashallah. Interesting topic of conversation today, because we are talking about basically how to get back to nature, and the importance of getting back to nature, and what stops us from doing so. And to answer that question, I'm joined by an absolutely wonderful guest this morning by the name of no other than Nina Nadia. She's an investigations data scientist and a trainee mountain leader. And she's talking to me about us getting back into nature and the barriers that we may perceive in doing so. And it was fascinating. About 2 weeks ago, I had a lovely experience. I was with a fantastic individual, a creative from Luton, a poet, and they were working on a project called Nature Calling. And the whole purpose of this project is actually encouraging people to have the confidence to get out in nature and not feel that they need to have permission. Are you somebody that feels as if that you need to have permission to be seen in certain places or go to certain places because of the colour of your skin maybe? Is the British landscape as diverse as we want it to be? What are those barriers that maybe stop you from getting out there? One barrier that Nina spoke to us was about equipment. She made a fabulous comment, and she said it's not really the weather, it's your gear that kind of stops you. I think I'm going to ask Nina a little bit more about what she means by that, and also find out more about her tremendous journey, which brought her all the way from across the world to the UK in one of the leading universities. She is originally from Mombasa, Kenya. And Nina moved here to London 21 years ago, and she studied biological sciences at Cambridge University before transitioning to tech. And we have had the absolutely amazing insight into her life. She's not just passionate about the tech world, but also passionate about mountaineering. She volunteers with Muslim hikers, and she's training to become a mountain leader. And she has done and completed amazing challenges, like notable events like the London Marathon, and summited both Mount Kilimanjaro and Everest Base Camp. And It's just extraordinary, her journey, and she's dedicated to empowering others, particularly Muslim women, and aims to leave a positive legacy by uplifting her community and breaking barriers in underrepresented fields. Wow. Without further ado, let's have another conversation with the amazing Nina. Assalamu alaikum, Nina.
Wa alaikum salam.
Such a treat talking about you, and you really are super inspiring in both these worlds that you are kind of paving your way in. Is there a favourite? Do you enjoy tech more than mountaineering, or do they have equal place in your heart?
Oh, that's a good question. I think they both have an equal place in my heart, and there are times where one is a little bit more favorable than the other. So I would say for me at work, when I'm in that flow state and I'm sort of lost in an analysis or investigation, then nothing beats that feeling. And equally on a mountain, when I'm sort of completely immersed in the hike and the surroundings, and I'm just at one, I guess, with the walking itself, and moments where I'm just like very, very mindful of Allah, then nothing beats that feeling. So yeah, they both have like a very special place in my heart.
Ooh, talk to me about being very mindful of Allah. What's this relationship that you have with your faith and the mountains or your working world?
Oh God, like for me, hiking is instrumental in terms of like thinking of the traditions of the Prophet. This is one of the things that he would often do, and like there are several examples of prophets who would go off on long walks and like just kind of like isolate themselves in order to reflect and then come back to their communities. And I find for me, especially with like the expeditions, there's usually a moment where you hit a wall and you realize that you essentially can't rely on yourself at that moment to get past that barrier and be able to continue on the hike. And I often turn to Allah in those moments, and you completely submit yourself to Allah. You're just like, I know that all my strength is coming from you. I know that all my abilities are coming from you. So yeah, Allah, please keep giving me what I need in order to get through this moment. And there's something very different that happens in your mind when you're sort of in that position, because you suddenly realize that, yeah, even though we're surrounded by all these man-made buildings, we're surrounded by all this technology that we've created, ultimately we still are very reliant on Allah. And I think hikes for me and challenges do that to you. They kind of remind you of the fact that you are subservient to Allah, and you're not deluded by the fact that, you know, oh yeah, I went to the gym and I trained and that's why I've built these muscles to get me to this point. It generally all is coming from Allah. So I think, yeah, for me, it's been very, very instrumental in terms of building my relationship with God.
It's so inspiring listening to you reflect on that and how paramount the environment is within our faith. So what would you say to people listening in? What sort of barriers do you think that people might perceive when it comes to mountaineering or just mountains across the UK, more strenuous hikes?
I would say, for me, honestly, one of the things that I did not appreciate until the Ramadan when Manal Armstrong and Aki Rahman were hiking, or like they were taking on the Mount Everest summit, I didn't realize just how much I needed to see someone who looked or resembled my beliefs doing something before I thought, yes, I can do that as well. Or I would love to give that a try. So for me, during that Ramadan, I remember following the stories on Instagram, and every time I would be like, wow, subhanAllah, like how amazing is that? And I could see myself doing it. And prior to that, I hadn't even entertained the idea of potentially doing like a big summit, for example, or even just like challenging myself to do some of the really high altitude climbs. It just felt like, okay, you know, I'm quite happy to do the hikes in the UK, you know, maybe get Kilimanjaro under my belt and so on, but I'd never aspired to doing anything beyond that. But seeing someone who you can relate to so deeply doing something genuinely gives you permission to then think, maybe I can give that a try. So representation is really important, I would say. And then as a woman and as a Muslim woman, the challenge I often found is at home, when I would want to dedicate more time towards the hikes and just like exploring the UK and being a bit more immersed in the nature, it often would come at a cost of like having time with family, for example. I have nieces and nephews, and I often spend the weekends with them, and I can't often take them with me to the hikes. So it's quite a balancing act that you have to kind of do. And then, of course, like, my mom would prefer that I spend a bit more time at home, just investing more on house life than I do. So that's always been a bit of a battle between us. It's kind of like getting her to understand the importance of hiking, but equally also understanding where she's coming from and trying to negotiate, I would say.
I love the two words that you've used: permission for yourself to go and do it, and also negotiating as well.
Yes.
two really interesting words that you've shared with us today. I want to kind of go back to this word of permission, giving yourself permission to do these challenges. Why do you think we need permission?
I think sometimes it's born out of fear. So I always think back to like the challenges that I've taken part in. And I used to do, the marathon is probably a very good one. I am the type of person who will sign up for a challenge before I appreciate what the challenge is.
Okay, I love
and
that.
And then once I'm in it, I'm just like, oh no, what have I done? And the fear then gets me like immersed in it. So with the marathon, I sort of saw the applications to join, and I thought, yeah, something I've always wanted to do. I'm not a runner. I really do not like running, but I thought this
but she did a marathon.
Into it. Yeah, I signed up for a marathon thinking that it was a normal thing to do. And then when I spoke to my friends and my colleagues who are actual runners, and they were like, I've never done a marathon and I go running every day. Or, I've never even considered doing half marathon. And I genuinely realized like there's something a little bit loose in my head because I did not conceptualize the idea
Did you not see any, Nina, did you not see any numbers or colours when you had this idea?
No. And this is where my ADHD comes into play. I am very spontaneous and quite like...
Love it.
The way I describe it is if I see like a carrot being dangled in front of me, or a magpie, my attention is just immediately gravitates to that. I'm like, yes, I want to do that. And then that becomes the sole focus. And then when I started training for the marathon, then I was like, oh no, this is actually challenging. This is like a full on.
And then the carrot dropped. You're like, okay.
Yes. But I was just like, but that, I almost like I'd already committed to it. So I thought, well, why not? Let's just do it. We've already done this.
I love it.
And alhamdulillah, I managed to do it. But I think with every other challenge, even just going on a hike, sometimes you kind of have to fall in head first, not really think about it, just sign up. And then once you're there, you start to like work through your fears and being able to kind of like overcome some of the mental barriers that we put up for ourselves. And the only way you can do that is if you just like throw yourself into it.
Indeed, which you have done, not just mountains, but also marathons. I love it. I love how you just like, just let yourself go. Trust the process. You trust the process and you do it. And alhamdulillah, you have. And that's the most beautiful thing. Does it go hand in hand? Do you think you're successful in your mountaineering because of this, because of the running and because of training that you've done in in marathon running? You're kind of fit to do so, because being fit does play a big part in this as well, right?
It definitely lends itself well in the sense that the more you invest in your fitness, the better the experience you have on a mountain. So I kind of go through phases where at the start of a hike, I am out of breath within 10 minutes. And then my body starts to catch up with me. And it's like, okay, now I'm getting used to this sort of like the physical strain that you put me under. And then it starts to get a bit enjoyable unless we're going uphill or in a steep section. At that point, it's just like essentially shouting at me, being like, why are you doing this to me again? But it definitely helps. So the more fit you are, the less challenging that feels. Saying that though, I would not say that I am the fittest person in the world. Definitely not. And I eat my sugary food way too much, which is partly why I also have to keep hiking to kind of counterbalance that.
Blame the sugar. I love it. Just blame the sugar. Blame the donuts. It's all their fault. That's why you're hiking.
Oh, yeah? God. Put a box of cookies in front of me and I'll turn around and be like, what happened to them?
It's not me.
Exactly. Like I can get through one, especially if I'm working and I'm in the zone. I can like literally get through a pack without realizing it, which is so bad. So now we're not allowed to have biscuits or cookies in the house.
Oh,
it's
bless.
just nuts.
But
from now on.
They're a round mountain, a mountain that you need to go around and not eat. Listen,
yeah.
you're making me all like hungry now, and I'm kind of like wanting a cookie, and I'm trying to be healthy, but we're allowed to have these conversations.
Let's talk fruits.
Yeah, let's
fruits are a good alternative.
Fruits. Like chocolate is a fruit, right? It's from the cacao plant. Yay!
Yes, and the darker it is, the better.
Indeed. Oh gosh, where is this conversation going? That's what happens, right? I love it. Yeah. It's so kooky. But folks, if you're listening in, you know the vibe is on the Urban Kube show. I'm joined by no other than Nina Nadia this morning, all the way up to 11 o'clock, and we are having conversations around investigating data, and we're also having conversations about giving yourself permission to get in the outdoors. And Nina is somebody who's not shy of the outdoors. Not only has she run a marathon, she's also climbed Kilimanjaro and also Everest Base Camp, and we're going to be finding out from her exactly what that experience was like. Tell me, Nina, I mean, Kilimanjaro, that's on my bucket list. It really is. What was it like, the experience doing that? And tell us just a little bit of background of Mount Kilimanjaro. Where is it?
Of course. So Mount Kilimanjaro is in Tanzania, in an area called Arusha. And it's the highest standing mountain, I believe, in the world. And my sister and I are the ones who signed up. So actually, my sister and her friend signed up, and they needed more people to kind of form a party, and we got roped in. And for me, honestly, it was like one of the best experiences in my life. Alhamdulillah. It was kind of quite nerve-wracking leading up to the actual expedition, because regardless of how much you prepare yourself, how much you train, you never really feel fully prepared until you're on the expedition. Mm-hmm. And again, just to go back to like the idea of having the right gear, we really learned that the hard way on the Kilimanjaro hike. So generally it's supposed to be quite dry. But for us, we had 3 days of non-stop torrential rain. Wow. And we were sleeping in tents. So you'd essentially like arrive at your tent drenched and then have to take your like clothes and hang them out to semi-dry. Wow. While you try and catch some sleep and then put them back on and do the same thing over again. And alhamdulillah, I think just before the hike, I was speaking to Bilal and I was kind of like umming and eyeing about what jacket to get, because I wanted to get a good waterproof jacket, but I didn't want to spend a fortune on it. And he managed to convince me to get a really good Montaigne one. It came at a bit of a price, but honestly, when we were on that hike...
We are not promoting the brand, folks. There are other brands you can get, but he is a walking, talking brand for that company, isn't he?
He is. And I was like, okay, it's tried and tested, so I can't disregard that. But honestly, when we were on the hike, I was so grateful, because every day we'd arrive and only my hands were dry, like wet, sorry. The rest of me was nice and dry.
It's amazing that, isn't it?
And that made a huge difference, because it meant that the day after, I wasn't dreading going on the hike because I knew I had like fully dry clothes. And even the shoes that we got, like they were leather waterproof shoes. And you'd kind of like appreciate just how much value they're adding to your experience, because like it's protecting you. It's essentially like covering you and keeping you warm in these elements, and doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And I think, for me, after that experience, I came back with a new appreciation for the things that I have in my life. Because before that, I think I'd fallen into the consumerism, like, oh, if it's broken, you'll just throw it away and get another one. But after that, you're like, no, I want to take care of you, because I need you to take care of me when I'm out on these mountains.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm facing the elements.
That is such a lovely reflection. And somebody else is also reflecting. I've just received a message, and they have said they are enjoying this conversation, and they want to know, what advice would you give to someone considering hiking or is new to hiking? And that's from Waj. Thank you very much for listening in and for your message.
My advice would be, just do it. Don't overthink it. If they're things that can help kind of ease you into the hiking world, I would say. Muslim Hikes is a really good example. So you have a group that's kind of already planned the route for you, and they'll provide the support and kind of give you the guidance that you need along the way. But you're also dealing with a really big group of people who are also in the same like boat as you. So the first hike you ever have, it's like a nice chance to be immersed in the experience without having to worry about like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. Should I turn left? Should I turn right? You have a guide who's like taking care of that. And then also you have like the team support to kind of help you just feel comfortable, get into the community in a way. That I found really helpful. And we get a lot of people who come like first timers who after that decide to then go off and do their own hikes. So they'll organize their own like local hikes or even go on treks. Some are now going international treks, which is amazing to see. But for me, I found that really helped, like being in a community where you can kind of be scared together. You can try it out together and share that experience. And then when you come back, decide if you want to keep going. And I have to say most people generally end up coming back, or they end up doing their own hikes after.
I love what you just said. Let's be scared together.
Oh, it makes a huge difference. There's some hikes that we've been on where it's like very, very risky.
Okay.
And having other people around you just kind of helps. It just helps ground you a little bit.
Okay.
You're like, okay, if I start to freak out, I know that someone else next to me is going to like bring me back down. And equally, if they start to freak out, I know that I'm ready to kind of like, just let them know that they've got this. We can do this together.
I love it, the camaraderie there. And then at the end of it, I'm sure there's loads of cookies, right, waiting for you?
Oh, yes, that is a must. So we always stop for some glazed donuts and coffee on the road trip back. And also, immediately after a hike, there's always like a meal as a treat to celebrate.
Wonderful. But food and nutrition must be key as well, right? So
it is, yes.
So what would you advise to anybody about what they should be eating whilst on hikes?
Oh, a good one I would say is hydration. A lot of times people tend to forget to remain hydrated. So taking things like electrolytes. If you think about it, when you're walking, you're sweating quite a lot and you end up losing a lot of your salts. So you have to make sure that you're replenishing those as much as you can, especially in the heat. And then for me, I like grazing when I'm on a hike. So I'll have like a bag of nuts or like a bag of dates. Sometimes I'll kind of carry a sandwich with me. And I just kind of, as I'm walking, I'll just graze along until we stop for a proper lunch. And then I'll kind of continue on and keep grazing. Because a little bit it's to do with the ADHD. I need to have something to do. Like I fidget a lot. Otherwise, for some people, I think they prefer just to have like an actual stop, eat, and then continue on and then have another stop. Whereas for me, I like grazing. And you'll have like a variety of foods. We've had samosas on the hikes. Someone brought brownies, which was like incredible. We tend to get a lot of like varieties. Oh, boiled egg is a good one on a hike.
Oh, really?
You'd be surprised at how, yes, boiled egg and a little bit of salt, it just hits the spot.
Wow, that is interesting. Okay, I've not heard anybody bring boiled eggs along to a hike. Sushi, yes. Samosas, pakoras, and pickle and cheese and crackers, and sandwiches. Okay, you're making me hungry. Nina, stop!
I would say also, if you ever do go on like an expedition, take with you one of the treats that's just like a really good comfort treat when you have at home.
Yes.
Because there will be days when you come back and you're just like, I want nothing but to be at home in my like duvet or under my covers. And the treat will just remind you of that. It'll kind of like bring you back.
How wonderful. I would like to ask you, Nina, is there a hike or a mountain that you have got your eyes on and you intend to do?
Oh, absolutely. So, inshallah, we're hoping to do K2 base camp in July next year. Inshallah. So, please pray that it happens. And then down the line, I would absolutely love to be able to do Everest Summit or one of the 8,000 summits. I think that would be like the ultimate challenge.
Extraordinary, because you've already done base camp, so the base camp is just the bottom of the actual final summit, right?
It is,
when we
yes.
talk about Basecamp. And K2 Basecamp, mashallah, I have some very close friends dear to me who completed that in this August gone. So subhanallah, they did. There was 14 of them, half of them were women, and they completed it. So
oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, Nina, you gotta do it.
Inshallah, I would love to.
It sounds phenomenal. Wow. As are you, my dear. Anything you would like to share regarding your career in investigative data analysing? What if there's anybody that's wanting to do that? What courses should they be doing?
Good question. I would say if you have a math or science background, often you already have like the fundamentals. It's a case of supplementing that with some of the programming languages. So if you're familiar with Python or R, I would recommend trying to find projects. There are loads of like data sets online that you can download and preset projects you can try your hand at, and just give it a try and see how you find it. If it's something that sparks in like interest or gets you excited, definitely keep going for it. If not, then there are other avenues that you can sort of take to get into the tech world. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a data perspective. There are a lot of like roles that kind of need to exist in order for data science or data analysis to work. So things like sales, account management, HR, these are all like project management even is a really big one. These are all roles that allow you to work within a data world, but not necessarily working directly with the data. But if you are looking to get into data science specifically, I would highly recommend doing some of the online courses on data analysis and data science.
Fantastic. Now we've just got about 40 seconds left to the end of the show. Nina, your social media handles, if you'd like people to follow you, what are they?
Oh, yes, of course. I am Nina Nadia. And feel free to drop me a message anytime if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you see that you kind of like want to know a bit more about.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Nina, for joining me today. It's been an absolute treat.
Thank you for having me.
And wishing you the best of luck with your K2 challenge. I'm going to definitely be following you on that and getting you back to talk about it. This was the amazing Nina Nadia. It is the end of the show. And thank you so very much for listening in, folks. And inshallah, join me same time, same place next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.